This is the lecture for Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, and we have just completed our quiz on the fall of the Roman Republic. So now I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to roll the dice for one solid reason why the Roman Republic fell. So each of you should sum it up in your minds, 2 or 3 of those, because somebody may pick yours, and I'm not going to accept, I don't know, he picked mine, because you're smart people. And the whole point of this, young Americans, is for you to comprehend how a society like ours could lose their freedom. Not that that could ever happen here. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 15 and above is a reroll. Why did the Roman Republic fall? Anyone have any questions about the question before I go on? And do not ask, why did the Roman Republic fall? Because that's your job. Okay, I roll. 8. 2, 3, 4, 6. Hi.
So I would say the main reason is because everybody was power hungry.
Who's everybody?
Like the guys in the triumvirates, they wanted to have their own armies and fight their own battles and not fight for the Republic.
Why do you think they wanted power? Aside from mustache-twirling E-Bill, why would a person who isn't necessarily Satan want to have that kind of power? Asking you to speculate. I don't expect you to know it cold, but what are some good reasons why a person would want that kind of power?
Well, normally they would probably think that they know what's best for the majority of people and that they're the only ones that know how to, right?
Okay, fine. So there is this sense of almost messianic, I have a dream, I have a desire to help the world, I have a way of solving problems, and I am going to do that if I get the power. Okay, not bad. So now you're out of the equation, and you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. We roll. I want a different answer. Not they're power hungry because they want to change the world. They being the triumvirs. Emma!
Oh, right. So, what was the question again? Why did the Roman Republic fall? Yeah. Okay, so, other than power and all that, everyone was gaining so many slaves that the freemen were having to work practically as slaves because of the less ability to get work because no one was willing to pay them for their craftsmanship.
Okay. How is it? Explain to me the connection, because you're not wrong. One of the reasons the Republic falls, aside from just ambitious men, is the economy is destabilized by the huge numbers of prisoners of war that become slaves. How does the equation work? How does the logical progression happen? Slaves, Roman Republic falls. What are some middle steps?
So some middle steps is the rich people who are able to buy a ton of slaves. They get richer and richer because they don't have to they don't have to pay their slaves. They just have to feed them and keep them working for a while. Okay,
an example of this is the latifundias in the countryside. These giant plantations that replace family farms with one giant plantation run or worked by slaves. Go on.
And then because there's so many slaves, when free proletarians try to come in and, well, at the time it would be the plebeians,
Plebeians, yeah.
Plebeians. they would try to come in and get a job by showing off their skills, but no one was willing to pay that money because they would have to pay them instead of using that money for their own personal gain.
Understand, businesses, this notion that academics have, that professors in colleges and Marxists have, that the business class is just flush with money and they can squander it, is nonsense. Anyone who's not a trust fund kid, anyone who has to work for a living and operate a business, is going to operate along lines that are going to produce fairly narrow profit margins. Businesses do not make much above their cost, because any business that ran itself to make an obscene profit margin would be outcompeted by their competitors, who would take a narrower profit margin for a greater volume of business. So a person who even wants to employ free labor can't, because the competitive edge that the slave owner would have would make it impossible for the one who employs free labor to compete. Now we get to the political equation. Do you want to answer it, or do you want somebody else to? Because you've done a very good job.
Pretty sure.
Go.
So the political equation.
How does this? You're right so far. There's one last step that affects the politics. So you got a bunch of proletarians who are free Romans who don't have jobs.
And so there are richer patrons, so it's almost like a patron-client relationship. Where like, hey, I'll provide you with stuff that you and your family need to live if you just do my bidding. And so that can affect the way that people vote, what sides they agree on, and like, for example, with the Gracchi assassinations.
So we'll leave the Gracchi off for a moment. Somebody else may want to talk more about that. But let's look at a modern issue. Oh, this is going to upset some people. In which case, argue your point. I'm going to make time for you if you want to argue your point. Let's imagine there was a political party in a republic somewhere that was worried that native-born constituents were moving away from their point of view, and therefore that they would be at a fundamental structural disadvantage if they kept their traditional points of view in future elections. So, why don't we get new people to come into the country? And those new people are going to come into the country in a way not that's natural and legal, but in a way whereby they owe us. And because they owe us, if we can then find a way to give them votes, most of them are going to vote for us. So we can afford to lose our traditional native-born constituents if we proportionally increase the number of new voters who owe us. That might destabilize things, because those new voters are not being treated like independent people. They're being treated like people that you bribe. And because they are people that you bribe, you can count on them because they owe you. And in fact, if they want to continue having people like them come in, they owe you more. Now, it should be obvious what I'm talking about. And it is not a proven thing. It's an assertion that I worry about. And I like immigration if it is legal, and if you are picking people who are nuclear physicists. But if it is illegal and the people coming in are unskilled laborers, we have plenty of that. We don't need more, in my judgment. So, what am I getting wrong? What am I being mean-spirited and unfair about in what I just said? Because I see a connection. Thank you.
Because some of the times, the people who are coming in, immigrating, they need a better living situation, and they can afford to see one here, though they may be in debt for some time because of the economy that we have right now, and with they can afford to get a job that can pay them so they can slowly become more independent and learn.
If they wanted to do that, why not come legally?
I think that there's a lot of corruption around, and sometimes the legal process can take too long for if they have a dire situation, they would need to get in quickly so they can survive or help their family survive.
Okay, I can't deny that. I have a niece, not the niece that I've told you about, but another niece who's got a green card, who's been here since she was 8 or so, and she's now a junior in college. And her family has been working through the legal process, and it's just been barrier after barrier, and it is corrupt. So I can't deny that. I can't deny that the legal system has been corrupt. I still maintain my point, but you've argued your point well. You have more to say before I go to someone else. I'm
Not
happy.
really relevant to this conversation. Kind of on.
Well, go ahead.
So, since the immigration laws and the process are so corrupt, we should try and focus and go to the root of the problem instead of trying to focus on like the branches that are happening. Because
Okay.
if the policy for people coming in and being immigrants and trying to become a citizen of the U.S. If that's taking too long, that could be the root problem of why there's so many illegal immigrants.
Okay. I would argue this before I go to George, and it's a little different. It's not my problem if somebody from Guatemala is not happy with their life. They're not American citizens. They're fellow human beings. I wish them well. I keep them in my prayers. But really, it's Guatemalans' responsibility to make Guatemala a better place, not mine. Nor is it my responsibility to provide a better life for Guatemalans who choose to come here. Because many who, oh God, I can go way off on this. I should, well, yeah. I don't necessarily accept moral responsibility for people from other countries, but that's probably a limit of mine. You sure you don't want to say more? Because I invited that, so please say it if you have thoughts.
Yeah, I kind of, the way I've grown up, I believe in like if people need a place to come to, that we are the ones who have the open arms, open doors to be like, hey, come make yourself a better life. Although we have a lot of barriers in place, so it's kind of like, hey, we have a lot of room, and you can come here for an open life, but here's a narrow path you gotta take.
Yep, and that's kind of frustrating. Got it. Thanks, George.
I would say that a lot of the time, that it can just be people seeking like a new life. While I would agree that like generally, if you want to immigrate to the United States, I would say try to at least come here legally and do that. But having said that, if you're if you just need to get out of a certain area, and like let's say you're in a very, very dangerous part of Mexico, you have nowhere else to go. You have no resources. You don't have money. You can't go anywhere else. You just need to get away sometimes, and you can't wait 15 years for an immigration and for you to go to the U.S. and find work. There are some people who just say, I'm going to take my chances. I'm just going to try to get out of here. If I get sent back, I get sent back. But at least I'll have some safety for some amount of time.
Why not go to Guatemala? I mean, if you're in Mexico and you're in trouble, Guatemala's on the border.
It is, but the thing is, let's say you're on the northern part of Mexico, you don't own a car, you don't have any money for any transportation.
Somehow they get transportation.
Because
you know what a coyote is, do you? Aside from the animal.
Yeah, it's someone who meets people across the board.
Yeah. In return for lots of debt.
Yeah, they don't do it out of the goodness of their heart.
No. Coyotes are vicious criminals.
No.
Go on, George.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, but that's what I would say. And then but I would say that generally you need to, I would wholeheartedly agree that coming here, you should come here legally. But having said that, I think
there are people who are in desperate need.
Yeah, there's a desperate need, I mean, there should be some compassion. People who are coming across the border purely seeking a new life and better opportunities.
Okay.
Because if you're working for $3 a day,
can I suggest any newly arrived immigrant is forbidden from seeking any welfare for the first 5 or 10 years of their time here. I'd be okay with that. I have a big problem with people coming to this country and immediately going on welfare, and many of them, not all, are illegals. So if there were caveats like that, I'd be more okay with it. Anyway,
Yeah.
You one last word before I go on to Chase?
I was just saying that I believe that there should be some, again, just compassion for people like coming across the
Open
even
arms,
if you,
compassion.
even if you're even if you need to send them back, at least do so in a humane manner that isn't going to result in possibly people being separated from each other, and allow at least families to stay together. Accept that.
Is there really enough unskilled workers? Because I feel like no one wants to do.
You know why? Because they have social welfare programs that allow them that option. Understand, the current labor shortage is not a matter of people not being available to work. The current labor shortage is because somehow Corona money has ended up in the pockets of people who decide, well, I'm getting Corona money, I don't need to work. And therefore, we have trouble staffing all sorts of jobs now. So, to me, the answer isn't to import a bunch of new workers to work illegally, because the labor laws in this country would forbid people from working the way they're actually working. I would say cut benefits or associate all benefits with structure all benefits to encourage work, so that no American can say that job's beneath me. No, digging ditches. If you want human beings to do that, and there are times when you do, it's a good job. I've done it. Working on a farm is a good job. I've done it. I would have much less problem if American welfare programs, state and local and federal, were designed to encourage people to do work and maybe supplement that rather than sit at home and just collect checks. Go on.
That's a really good point that you should supplement their income and have a job. Anyway, I think that immigrants should just do the military if they come here. Maybe they should have to do it, and because there's so many opportunities from the military. It's job experience. It would really set them up afterwards.
Well, actually, a traditional way of becoming a citizen of the United States or France is to join the military. The French Foreign Legion, Légion d'étrangers, still exists, and anyone from around the world can join them. It's tough. Oh God, it's tough. But it's a way of becoming a French citizen. And trust me, being a French citizen, as much as I diss on the French, is much better than being a citizen in 70 or 80% of the other countries on Earth. So I agree. That's a legal way of doing it. Absolutely respectable. Does anyone who hasn't said anything yet want to say something before we move back to Rome? Emma, you've been so good. Go ahead.
So the welfare programs, those are being taken advantage of. I can't deny that. And so if we want people to get back on their feet, I believe that's the original intent for the welfare program, to kind of provide people to live the American dream while getting ways to get back on their feet. But since that time that it was implanted, it's been corrupt because of natural human greed.
Yeah.
And,
well, it also has been corrupted by the good intentions of the people providing welfare. A classic example from the 1960s and 70s, is aid to single mothers. Aid to single mothers was made much greater than aid to poor married couples. And in federal housing, single mothers were given preference over poor married couples. So, and this is in overwhelmingly black and Hispanic communities back then, you have women and men who otherwise would be married, who otherwise would provide a mom and a dad for their kids, living the lie that they're not married in order to get the better apartment or the better welfare payment. So our welfare policy actually materially contributed to breaking up families in minority communities who overwhelmingly were the majority of welfare recipients back then. That's pretty bad. And that isn't even corrupt exactly. It's just the unintended consequences of good intentions. Did you have one?
I did, yes.
Go.
Yeah, intentions.
If you want to think about it and come back, I'll try to make room. If you want to see horns and a tail and fiery demon voice, listen to what I'm about to say about welfare. Because trust me, this gets people angry. I have no problem with a decent welfare state so long as nobody on welfare is permitted to vote while they're on welfare. Because to me, there's a direct conflict of interest. You are receiving government aid. You're not doing a job like a person in the military or a person who works for the bureaucracy. You are receiving government aid because you are in need. But for you to then be able to vote for the people who will increase your aid, to me, is a direct conflict of interest. So I would have no problem with people being on welfare so long as, for the duration of their welfare, they were not allowed to vote. And then the moment they get off welfare, they're allowed to vote. But that violates their citizenship rights. They're entitled. Go.
I was gonna say, isn't like of the U.S. isn't one of our basic foundations of citizenship is the right to vote?
The question is somebody who's fully supported by the government as if they're a child, a citizen? Or are they a something else? And that is a question I will ask and I will take the heat for. And, through the internet, people are throwing fruit or rocks or flaming Molotov cocktails. I just want you to think about it. You come up with your own answers. Most of my ideas are nonsense anyway. And I've learned to live with that and have fun with it. The problem is that Romans who don't support themselves become the tools of rich people who support them. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And that's a huge deal. Now I'll take volunteers. Why else? What has not been said about the fall of the Roman Republic? We have the ambition of the patrons. We have the destruction of Rome's economy. George, and then Jason. I'm sorry, not George. Renato! Jaden.
I would say the Civil Wars.
How so?
Well, because after when the Gracchi started coming along, murders, and then divisions kept happening, more and more divisions kept coming along, and Civil Wars just kept repeating over and over and over.
So Romans no longer were able to agree to disagree and go back and fight the next election. That's important. And this even happens before the Civil Wars. You're right, it's the Gracchi. When people start assassinating their political opponents, that's a bad sign. And when the assassins aren't properly caught and punished, that's an even worse sign. And when they're tribunes of the plebs, that is giant doom, like Godzilla's shadow approaches your city. It's like, oh, that's not a good sign. Not being able to win or lose gracefully and being willing to kill your political opponents, that's stepping off.
Mine is kind of more towards the end of the empire. Most of the people were in the east because it was a lot more profitable to live in the east. They produced a lot more stuff, like grain from Egypt and stuff. And so the west was kind of undefended, and Germanic tribes were starting to settle down and form kingdoms and civilization and stuff, and so they kind of ate away the west of the empire.
You are right about the fall of the Roman Empire in the west, which we will get to in a while. In terms of the fall of the Republic, you're right in this sense. The East, even though Rome wasn't in the East, when Rome conquered the East, is when the slaves really came. The Punic War, the Second Punic War, was part of it. But Rome begins gathering huge amounts of wealth, which changes its composition, and huge amounts of slaves, which changes its composition. And that's all a result of conquests in the Greek and Macedonian East. And there are people who would argue that the sort of tough guy, Roman, oatmeal-eating, saddlebag with eyes that was the stereotypical Roman citizen gets replaced by the symbiotic, sensualist Roman citizen who goes to orgies Friday night and has a vomitorium in his house because when you have a feast, you invite people to eat and eat and eat and eat for hours, and then they go to the vomitorium and purge and clean up, and then they go eat some more for a few more hours. Yeah, that's decadent stuff. I mean, they didn't invent it. It was actually done in Rome. Stylish people in the empire had vomitoria, and they had orgy rooms in their houses. What's that room for? You don't want to know. So, yeah, the wealth of the East does arguably corrupt, maybe enlightened Roman society, and the West becomes culturally less important as time goes on because of that. So, thank you for your discussion. Tomorrow we go into the story of Christianity, which is going to be a few weeks. So, thank you.